Hello and welcome to the Backlot 605 box office. I am your host Brian Mensing, and joining me as always is my co-host Derrick Veurink. How you doing this tonight?
Pretty good, Brian. You?
I guess I can't complain. It's been an interesting weekend for once because we actually have things that actually are going to make us actually have a little bit of a conversation this week as opposed to the last couple of weeks.
It really helps when we actually have new movies in theaters. That goes a
Yeah.
long way. So,
Well, and even when we're getting new movies, big ones that people actually want to go see.
yes,
So we'll actually have some numbers to actually talk about,
exactly.
which going into that, I do this is one of those things where it's like, okay, going into the what do we expect to be the number one of the box office this week? I'm surprised. I'm not surprised considering the dynamic of what the new releases we had coming up this week. Um, but part of me also says people will go see this stuff. You went to
Yeah.
go see this stuff.
I went to see this stuff 3 times. So,
Three times. So you are the reason why we did. No, I'm just kidding. So yes, the three times that Derek is talking about is the number one movie this week is Jackass Forever,
yes.
$23.5 million. The Johnny Knoxville led hooligans that is the Jackass movies. I will be forefront and saying, I'm of the MTV generation, and it isn't literally until the last 48 hours I have actually watched the very first three Jackass movies. I've never seen Bad Grandpa. I've never seen any of the 2.5s, 3.5, none of that stuff. Um, I as somebody who's gone through one, two, and three in the last, like I said, 2 days, um, clearly the production value increases exponentially from for me it's episode to episode pretty much. These
Yep.
are long form skits basically.
hmm
Um Overall to the whole of the series, Derek, what did you feel, how do you feel Jackass Forever is in comparison? Other than the fact
Um,
that they're getting really old.
I mean, they are getting old, but one, they know that. Two, they've
Mhm.
got a bunch of new, younger jackasses to throw into the mix to help spread the pain out. Although, to be fair, Johnny Knoxville and Steve-O and, all the others, Pontius and Wee Man and Danger Aaron, they're all doing stuff in this movie. They're all still doing painful stuff, which is
Mhm.
amazing. Hopefully, when I get to be 50 years old, I can take that as well as they can, although that's
Right.
redonkulous. Um, and there is you know, some softness, some sentimentality into it, but never too much because, again, the goal of this is still to get injured and have fun doing it. And
Yeah.
part of the reason why I went 3 times is because these are great movies to watch with audiences in a theater
Mhm.
because when they get hurt, the guys on the screen are laughing and it gets infectious and we can't help but laugh and it's a real good party experience. So,
Oh, I definitely bet. Now, one of the questions that I have, just again from watching these, here recently and whatnot, and knowing of certain things and whatnot, um, the first thing I think of is one of the main cast members of the first three and whatnot, has is unfortunately is not there, is Ryan Dunn. And
correct.
I is there anything like for me, it almost kind of felt, again, not going into the Jackass really fresh into these whatever in the last couple days and whatnot. I knew of the Ryan Dunn thing from years ago.
hmm
Does it feel like there's at least a little bit of homage, a little bit of like, hey, we the ones that can't be here now, we still pay homage to them?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say it straight up. There is a Ryan Dunn tribute at the very end of the
Okay.
movie during the end credits. So they definitely acknowledge him. They do not acknowledge Bam, who is not in this movie for legal reasons.
Hmm.
But Ryan Dunn certainly gets a tribute amongst all of this. So,
Okay,
and
that's good.
it's somewhat endearing. So,
See, and that's one of those things that it's, it felt to me, not compare apples or hand grenades, he knows, but almost the kind of thing like if you are going to progress the story or whatever to the likes of, like, say, Paul Walker in the Fast and Furious movies. It's like, hey, we're gonna do this, but we still gonna pay respect to the ones that can't be here with us now. So that right there alone makes me actually would want to go see this more actually. Even if it's just something that's in the end credits, it's something going saying, hey, you know what? We're still going to pay tribute to, one of our fallen basically.
Yep,
So
yep.
awesome, awesome. So going into number two, the Jackasses beat out the disaster piece that is Moonfall. Roland Emmerich's for quite a bit. It looks like $10.01 million. What I find fascinating between these two here is Jackass has a higher cinema score in the process. So this isn't trending as well as we would kind of hoped is what it looks like here, Derek.
Well, I mean, there are a few things to say here. First off, I mean, the Jackass movies have actually, to an extent, kind of been better and better reviewed as time has gone on. I should actually look this up because as of last week, Jackass Forever was flirting around 90% on Rotten
Wow,
Tomatoes. I forget where as of right now, as of this recording, it is certified fresh at 85%. So,
impressive.
so again, and people know what they're getting into when they see a Jackass movie. That helps. Of course, the weird
Hmm.
thing is people also know what they're getting into when they see a Roland Emmerich movie,
Hmm.
because they know there's going to be copious destruction and stuff like that. And and to be honest, the Roland Emmerich movies just never get treated well by the critics in the first place. Um, that's just part parcel of making these incredibly ridiculous, incredibly stupid disaster movies.
Hmm.
And actually, Moonfall was at 40% on Rotten
Ooh.
Tomatoes. I should throw that out there. Um, and again, this is a movie that gets very much ridiculous because on one hand, it's the moon is falling toward Earth. Okay, that's one thing in and of itself. But it's having seen this movie as well over the past weekend. It's when the movie gets into like the second half and they start going into, okay, so why is the moon falling? And Roland Emmerich goes into details, like he has Donald Sutherland showing up for just one scene to give some exposition, and then when they go to the moon, because they do go to the moon to stop the moon from falling, they get even more exposition in the process. I'm not going to say how that occurs, but let's just say there is some really wild, really ridiculous reasons for why this movie does what it does. And let's not forget, Emmerich is also a sci-fi lover as well. So,
Hmm.
um, I guess I'm not surprised. Again, obviously these Roland Emmerich movies kind of had their heyday, kind of around the time that the original Jackass series was on, like with your Independence Day
Yep.
and your Day After Tomorrow and your Godzilla 98. That's kind of where he was at his peak, but he's still, things have kind of diminished since then, but he still makes these kind of movies. It should be noted Moonfall is actually an independently financed movie, although it cost nearly $150 million. So, from a box office perspective, it's going to have a hard time recouping its money. But, you know, I enjoyed it for what it was, knowing full well, like, this is just what you expect in a Roland Emmerich movie. And, not everybody's going to like that, but
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. But also when you're going up against a movie like Jackass Forever, which is kind of like a once in a decade phenomenon at this point,
Hmm.
I could totally understand why you'd want to see that movie first before this. So,
Yeah, and the part that's funny though too is you mentioned that this going up against Jackass and whatnot is I do feel that the demographic between somebody that would go see Moonfall and somebody that would go see Jackass Forever, clearly yes, and obviously there is going to be some overlap and whatnot. But I think that even if Jackass Forever had not opened this weekend, I don't think this number would have been much higher. I don't.
not really. No, I mean, it would have been interesting to see, given that we had, basically those last two weekends before this where there really weren't much for new movies. If one of
Hmm.
them was just willing to get out there a little bit sooner or put itself in that week before slot once Morbius moved out, maybe it would have had more of a fighting chance if it was the only new game in town. But this is just what happened here, and that's what it is.
Poor Roland. All right. Going in at number three, the finally dethroned, well, pretty much dethroned, Spider-Man No Way Home, $9.6 million, only taking a 13% dip in its eighth week. Getting really close to clearing that $750 million mark.
Yep.
Um, still, and as always, still an impressive feat and whatnot. Still going to be one of those all-time movies.
Yep. I mean, and I should also call out, this is 9.6 million. Moonfall was like an even 10. So Moonfall and Spider-Man were actually much closer than would have thought it would have been. And that certainly makes the case that next weekend Spider-Man will actually have topped Moonfall, which, you know,
Probably.
not good for Moonfall. Pretty impressive for Spider-Man. Yeah, we're basically at $749 million here. Again, Avatar is at 760, so Spider-Man's basically 11 million away at this point. So certainly within the next 2 weeks, it'll pass that at the all-time box office, and will be only behind The Force Awakens and Endgame for the third biggest movie at the box office of all time, not accounting for inflation, which again, pretty impressive to pull off during COVID times like these.
No,
So,
definitely. Sony, this is probably one of those ones where Sony's like finally going, yes, gets to put some money back in the bank.
and it's going to be interesting because I was just thinking about it because obviously in a couple weeks Sony has their next big movie finally, which is another Tom Holland vehicle in Uncharted. And
Hmm.
there's a part of me, even though this may be a stretch, there's a part of me that's kind of curious in terms of will that love for No Way Home and Tom Holland spill over into an audience that shows up for Uncharted? Certainly, Sony would love to see that. Who knows if it'll happen? But that's what I'm going to be curious about.
You bring up a very valid point because the way I will spin that argument is a couple things. Is there is a huge Sony, is definitely banking on the Tom Holland aspect. However, they do have Mark Wahlberg in there to at least help the dynamic and whatnot. But the things that Sony's got going against it though is majority of the time, comic book or not comic book movies,
Video
excuse
game
me,
movies.
video game movies are not successful at the box office. One occasionally here and there they ring true because I think Tomb Raider was okay for a return if I remember correctly, but
Yep.
not
Yep.
great.
Yeah, the
Um,
first one was. The sequel and the Alicia Vikander version didn't do as well, but
Right, exactly. But then you look at like say like Chaos Walking and the train wreck that was that, we have Tom Holland, we have Daisy Ridley just coming off Star Wars and whatnot, and two of those fresh faces still couldn't save that movie. So it will be very interesting to see how Uncharted. I legit as not even as a PlayStation, I've never played the Uncharted games or whatnot. For the sake of Sony, I do honestly wish it great success because I think it is definitely like a modern day ish like Indiana
it,
Jones that they could
yep,
definitely use.
yep. I mean, obviously, they've tried to get this movie made for years, like many,
Hmm.
many years, many directors, many delays. So they're hoping for the best. We'll just see if we actually take to it. So,
Yeah, I will be very interested to see that how that works. Coming in at number four, Scream, $4.73 million, taking a 35% dip from its third week. Just on the verge of passing that $70 million mark. If I remember correctly, just in terms of overall budget, this thing's been in the black for a while. So this
oh,
is just a
easily.
yeah, this is just a matter of just basically turning and burning until it hits home video.
Yeah, and we did get that March 1st digital date. So again,
Mhm.
that's a 45-day window there. But we should also mention that in the course of the past week, they did announce the sequel to this movie,
Yes.
which is coming from the same writers, the same directors. Assumedly, they'll get the survivors from this movie back for that, and they're already going to film it this summer. So I'm very curious how quickly they might flip it. I mean,
Mhm.
I could easily see it coming out sometime. Maybe if they really want to rush it, they could hit like this time frame next year, which would be insane. But again, when you've got an audience that's excited for this stuff, you kind of want to seize upon that opportunity. So
Didn't we see when they announced that? Didn't they say for a tentative 2023 release date?
I don't think they actually gave a date in it. Certainly not as like a specific day and date release,
Yeah.
but um, obviously they're going to flip it as quickly as they can. So
No, definitely. I would be curious. I mean, the good thing is that they're relative movies like this can be relatively low budget and you can turn these over pretty quickly. Uh,
mhm.
So hopefully they roll on that bank as best they can.
Yeah.
Coming in at number 5, the only lonely uh, new release animated movie Sing 2 comes in at number 5 for $4.17 million, and clearly with that 11% dip from week 6 to 7 is more proof as to what we've basically been saying for the last 7 weeks. This is the only show in town.
Yep.
I did see that, and you mentioned this last week here. I did see on the Cinemark app that that they
The
Universal
DreamWorks
DreamWorks,
movies.
excuse me, yes, has dropped Kung Fu Panda thing, basically just to get stuff out there to get kids to go to the movies and whatnot. So,
Yeah. I
um,
mean, again, I'm kind of surprised that, studios haven't really found much to, like the major studios, they haven't really found anything to plug that gap.
yeah,
Um, and of course, Sing 2's been holding up very, very well, so you would think that would be a signal, but, the closest stuff that we have is just not ready yet, because again, Sonic the Hedgehog 2 isn't coming till April. Fantastic Beasts 3, also April. That DC Super Pets movie with The Rock and Kevin Hart, that's May. So, families are going to be, I mean, it's probably going to be a good thing for Sonic when that finally comes out, because then
oh
families are
sure,
like, yes, we can finally see something in the theater again. But until then, it's going to be a rough couple of months. So,
yeah. And there's some good solid ones that are coming that it's like if they were done and ready, people are, I mean, clearly there are movies that are showing that people are willing to go to the theaters and stuff like that. If there's not a if there's a way to make some of them, I just wish they would just be like, we're just going to release it now. Let's just get it out now.
yeah. Or, I know it won't happen as well, but you would almost think Disney would be like, well, do we have to prop up Disney Plus? Could we do something with Turning Red in theaters? At this point, Disney's not going to renege on that, obviously, but,
No,
given, I would think it would still make huge bank in March if it was still coming out in theaters, but, that's what it is, and Pixar movies will just keep going to Disney Plus, at least until Buzz Lightyear, but that's another story.
that's a whole different thing. You can't tell me Disney's going to be like Disney Plus. Uh, you know, I said that about Turning Red, and that didn't work. So
No.
we'll wait to see what Disney actually does at that point. All right, so our top 5 for this week coming in number 1, Jackass Forever, $23.5 million. I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I actually kind of want to see that.
You
Coming in
should.
at, I know, right?
You
Coming
should.
in at number 2, Moonfall, $10.01 million. Spider-Man: No Way Home takes number 3 at $9.6 million. Scream 2022 comes in at number 4, 4.73 million, and Sing 2 takes number 5 to round it out at $4.17 million. Um, so I'm just throwing this out there. We're going for a sequel to Scream. So are we going to call Scream 6 Scream 2?
I've joked that they should call the next movie Scream, just to really rub it in and just go crazy with it.
At,
Um,
at that point, we're just going to start naming them colors like Weezer albums. I'm just saying. And at that point, it'd be like, that one's black, that one's dark gray. Um, I'm not gonna. If they did that, I would actually kind of. I would actually be okay with that. I can't believe I'm saying it, but I
that
would actually be okay with that.
that might be the hardest creative decision they'll have to make. Not necessarily what the slant is going to be in terms of how it's critiquing movies or what the mystery is going to be. It's going to be figuring out what the title is. So,
Hmm.
or maybe they'll just do Scream Kills. Who knows if they really want to be blatant.
I thought about that too. I was like, and then they'll be like, and then there's Scream 3, which is Scream Ends. All
Dun,
right.
dun.
Dun dun. All right. So coming up this next week, and we actually do have a couple of new movies coming out here. One of them you might actually have to give me a little bit of highlight because I don't know if I've even seen previews for this. We got Death on the Nile, which I've
Yep.
been looking forward to for basically 2.5 years because this was starting to get previews just as COVID was shutting down.
Or
Um,
yep.
Pretty close
Or
anyway.
well, the trailers first started coming out when Tenet came out, which is
Okay.
basically a year and a half ago. But this was
Okay.
filmed in 2019. Obviously, for those who don't know, this is the second Kenneth Branagh Hercule Poirot movie following 2017's Murder on the Orient Express. This
Mm-hmm.
has Gal Gadot, it has Armie Hammer, it has Russell Brand, and a bunch of other people embroiled in a new mystery, but this time it's on a boat. So,
Yes. As somebody who really enjoyed his version of Murder on the Orient Express, I've actually been waiting and been looking forward to this one. So I'm glad that we're finally getting this one to drop.
yep.
Next week we also have Marry Me, as you put on here that is streaming on Peacock. So is get an opportunity to see this one. I don't have to go to the theater to go see this. This is the I'm
Jennifer Lopez and Owen
oh,
Wilson.
yeah, I know, but my hesitation was I'm still trying to mentally grasp at the chemistry of these two people. Like how did these two people get cast for a movie other than the fact that J Lo can sing and she's playing basically a version of herself.
Well, the joke I make about this movie is that it's going to be 2021 or 2022's most successful rom com of 2003, because that's probably when they were in their heyday in this genre, and
Yeah,
would have made the most bank. But here we are. So
yeah. All right. So and then lastly, what is Blacklight? Because I'm not quite sure I know what this is.
yeah, a lot of people haven't heard about this one. This is the new Liam Neeson movie.
Okay.
Um, um, again, your typical Liam Neeson programmer. He basically plays like a government, black ops kind of guy, like cover ups and all that stuff. I don't know the exact plot, but I think it's like basically like he learns that the government is doing stuff that's even too shady for him, and then Liam Neeson, kicks ass like he usually does. It's from the same people who made the movie Honest Thief, which came out during the pandemic a couple of years ago. The guy who directed that movie, Mark Williams, and this movie, he's also the creator of Ozark on Netflix.
Okay.
So, it's a little weird because one, it's probably the most disposable Liam Neeson one yet. It's also ironic because the one thing we haven't mentioned here is that next weekend is also Super Bowl weekend, which is going
Mm-hmm.
to be which we're going to see a lot smaller numbers next weekend on our show because people don't go to the movies on Super Bowl Sunday because they're watching the
True.
game. Um, but it's also ironic because people kind of forget this. Um, the first Taken movie, the movie that gave Liam Neeson his career, that came out on Super Bowl weekend of 2009. Fox had no idea what they were going to do with it, but they did put out that really cool trailer where he gives his "I have a set of particular skills"
Mm-hmm.
speech, and that movie made $30 million on Super Bowl weekend, which Fox did not plan for at all. And Liam Neeson got his ass kicking second career out of that movie on Super Bowl weekend. So it's funny. We're coming full circle, but that's what it is. And the other
It,
thing I should mention is not only do we have the Super Bowl next Sunday, but we also have Valentine's Day next Monday, which we won't cover on this show. But again, it's a very big box office day. That's primarily the reason we're getting "Marry Me" in theaters next weekend, is so that it will be the quote unquote date movie of Valentine's Day night itself. But a lot of things to watch. But that's just where we're at because we have this big backlog of movies, and even though it's the Super Bowl, we got to get them out. So
mm-hmm. I will be curious to see whether or not Marry Me has any sort of like Valentine's Day ish kind of hope and dreams, to be honest.
yeah.
All right. Well, that has been our box office for this week. Be sure to check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Letterbox HQ. We're all at Backlot 605. You can also check us out the South Dakota Film Community Group on Facebook. Film lovers, film enthusiasts, filmmakers. We just love talking about movies. If you want to hear more in regards to what we have to say about movies, be sure to check out the podcast on Apple, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, Amazon, and check out our pretty faces on YouTube. If you want to support the show and get more bonus content, be sure to check us out on Patreon, patreon.com/backlot605. What else can we look forward to, Derek?
Yeah. Well, first off, I should say I'm really disappointed we're not getting a Jackass Forever Patreon episode. That would have been
I,
really up my alley. But
I, I will make
such it
sure to,
is.
I will air your grievances with Casey and see what he says
But
because
anyway,
I'm okay with that actually.
But anyway, as of this airing, we are 3 days away from the Schmuckies ceremony at Spellbound Magic Shop this Thursday night, 7 p.m. Also live streaming on the YouTube and the Facebook. Again, just like last year, it's actually gonna be bigger and better than last year. Again, myself and Brian and Sam will be talking through all the nominees and picking the winners. Our good friend Charlie Eccles is hosting live music, live comedy, live magic from Travis Nye, the owner of Spellbound. It's going to be a great time. So if you can make it out to Spellbound Magic Shop and watch this in person, please do so. But if you just want to tune in from home on Facebook or YouTube, that is fine too. Just experience the show in some fashion. It'll be a really fun time.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, that has been our box office for this week. Be sure to check us out this week and every week and check out all our podcasts. Otherwise, we will see you guys here next week.
See ya.
Bye.